Hello, I have the key for the ultimate genre. The ultimate genre. Basically, what you have to do is make your music with all of these two traits. When someone's blinking, um, when they're like, hey, hey, like, um, it emulates, one spurt of liquid coming out. When someone has like eyes that, kind of like it stutters, they're like, hey, 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 like, hey, 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 like that, and it starts going like, hey, 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 and it's like, it's like squirting, just it's like a little water nozzle, just, and you can kind of predict it, and then it starts getting a like a movement like that, and it's not like it's not like the trippy visuals that, like don't, like if you sit there and, they don't like if you sit there and you talk to it for a long, like if you talk to someone for a long time and you're sitting there focusing, it's like, hey, how you doing? And you're just talking great like this, it gets really like, it's like a trickling little pieces of water falling, and it's like you get interrupted eventually when you find something scary that you're talking to like that, because it feels like it's trying to get, and I eat you. It's like a caterpillar. It's just like a big fat one. Those big green ones with the little V's on their back. They're big and fat, and you just see one just like trying to get up in your mouth. And that is basically, what that genre would be. And it has to be something that, like when you're sleeping, like that, and then all of a sudden it's like, like you have to have something that is trippier than any form of alarm, that can actually emulate consciousness, and would be, and you'd have to study RAR files, and you'd have to study WinZip files, and you have to have the will to understand small bits of information, such as, and that's it. And you'd be like, man, you just touch his face right there. His lips have this proportion. This is, so many inches. This is a shape. A is a letter. And then, you can say like there's this line right here where this is going up, with the height is this way, and you could say like, and his face is this wide, and you could say like his breath probably smells like this because he's wearing this shirt, which is brown, you could say, and I mean his voice tone. You could say that the thickness of his lips, have like these African qualities. They aren't African qualities, are African qualities. You could say, he didn't shave your ear. This is how many numbers. This is how many texture. You could say this is how many hair. And this is what. So you take all of the little pieces of the mathematical information, and then they all have to go straight in a line, and then they have to be able to be stopped, and also like moved from place to place to be displayed. And the only way you can do that, is if you kind of trip people out, like in Earthbound, from Super Nintendo. And you have to be able to make, music that kind of like does a squirting and hey, 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 and like interrupts you, and has fluid movement, so it fully articulates something, that is like cool, kind of like when you have a honey bun and you can move it further away or closer, and it could make your mouth like want to swell. I mean, want to like spurt liquid and spew, and squirt because it's just so delicious, But it has to be something that would censor it out. It had to be something that would trigger it, so it would, basically really interact with your mind. It's like if someone died, there'd be some kind of squirming worm, crazy animal thing that would like, like be in your mouth trying to not get eaten or get eaten, that would like be emulated from hearing the music, and you'd have to find this sounds, that would do that, or, like in certain places do it, and, it would have to have, elements kind of like, like even though there's four beats and there's boom, 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 and things are on beat. You'd have to be able to make it to where it's all off beat and on beat, and it have to be. And the only music that you could make is it has to be in your mind, and it has to be created by a third party. And by that I mean you have to use visualization and visions in order to make it. And I don't mean visions, I mean real visions. I mean, like, you have to look at your mind like it's a computer. You have to look at it like there's a controller, there's a character in here that you have built. You have to make that character, you know, kind of zip, zap, zoop, zap, zip, zap. You know, it's got to, like, be able to move. You know, like, you know, when you make a cartoon character, it's got different traits that makes it want to be a person, makes it want to be imagined, but it has to have the ability to want to be a person. It's got to be able to be habitable, and it's got to be able to, you know, not surprise you, and also, like, be able to scare the shit out of you, and still, like, if it's still being listened to, you're like, man, this is, like, you know, really intense, until, like, you know, it also can chill you out too, you know. So you have to use all of the songs that have been out so far, and that's what they are there for, actually. And you can take them, and you could almost take, like, strips of meat and just lay them across, you know, like on a plate, and lay them over each other, you know, and it's got that smooth texture, right? And, you know, like a long song that is predictable, it's easy to figure it out. You can turn on the radio and it's like, I've always loved you, you know, is kind of offbeat and weird. But I mean, like, when you hear a song, like, if you try to sing it and you're kind of used to it, and you can get the offbeat version, and it's scary sounding, but it's more like you have to talk to yourself, you have to do repetition to yourself, and it would be like kind of like that. I had a dream a few days ago, and there was this big fat caterpillar. Like, it was like a bunch of trippy shit was going on that I can't really convey. But anyway, basically, I was like in the back of this yard, and I mean, see, everything I'm saying is already predictable. I couldn't tell you the dream because there's no way you can just say what it is and it not be predictable. I mean, you'd have to come up with something that actually is followable, that's not said over and 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 over. You know, even Vanover. You know, and it's like when you're really, you know, like, you'd have to have some kind of way to, you know, say stuff that, you know, like, gives that pleasure. It has to give you that speed, you know. But it, you know, you know, but it like, you know, like, I mean, it has to have things that the drugs did, you know, things that the drugs did, you know, the drugs did, you know. It has to be like that, you know. It has to be like this, you know. That's what it has to be like. This, that, it has, this is like, this type has to be like. And, you know, and then when you say a song that is like, you know, understandable like that, you know, you want to be able to convey life. You want to be able to get something that can trip you out, that can keep you awake. You know, I wanted to talk to that caterpillar. It told me, you know, it was coming up like this, and, you know, he said, hey, egg, you know, and he was sitting there like this, and he said, I need money, I need money, I need money, and he goes, I need money, I need money, I need money, and then he gets really tiny, and he's like, I need money, 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 you know, you know, and then it was like really tiny though, and it sounds like a little, I need money, you know, but it was like, you know, like really, you know, trippy, and then I woke up, and he's like, I need money, boring, 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 you know, and it was like bouncing around and shit, you know, in my head, and like he was still in my mental view, you know. It's like there was a warm spot where I could still kind of see him, you know, like it was still comfortable and chill enough to where I could kind of visualize him being there, you know. And that caterpillar was like, you know, like a ghost or something. It's like like if you just stuck a roly-poly, like if you swallowed one and somehow it could like still function and not die in there, you know, because you're so smart and know what they do, you know, or maybe like our brain's like a mothership and we could put something in it, you know. And then the caterpillar, like he wanted me to go outside and start jogging, so I went straight outside because he was starting to get fat, and you could see his legs like this getting all big in my brain, like, you know, like he started getting really big and he started getting like happy and you know, and then gets oh fuck, you know, like one of those roaches comes up and you know, and you know, but and then it looks like it has like a, you know, one of those little tails and it moves like that, you know, like a little coattail, you know, and it's like you know, and then zap zap zap, you know, and then it's supposed to trip you out like that. And then, you know, he said, I need to go outside, I need to go outside, you know, but he didn't say that, you know, and, you know, it just kept saying it and saying it. And then I started running, and I had to keep up, and I had to say what it said, because, you know, I have like an animal, you know, will bark and go like, you know, like if I wanted to be quiet, and I'm sitting there like doing anything, you know, and then I'm like, be quiet, and, you know, and then my dog would like, wants to go outside, and I'm like, shh, 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 shh. You know, I just keep saying it, you know, shh, 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 until it tries to be quiet, you know. But anyway, it has to have that kind of momentum, and it has to have it to where, like, whatever it has to say, has to have, you know, a way to jump out of what's inside of the music. And it has to, you know, like, go outside of those laws. It has to be able to do that with the caterpillar. It's always like that. I mean, it have to be a caterpillar, period. You know, and just for that caterpillar, you know, to not creep me out, you know, I kept running, and, you know, it started to, like, get better, you know, but, you know, it's kind of what I mean. And it's got to have, like, elements to get you amped up, you know, like when you first heard a song and it was just that good, you know, and it's like techno is like boom, 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 you know, but then it would have like, you have to build a layer that is like 100% longer than the next one, you know, like it was like boom, 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 you know, and it's longer. And then you have a shorter piece, you know, that's a part of, so we can lay another long piece across it, you know, and then it could be like, and then that would be that part, and then it has to have like a little Morse code part where it says something, like it says it's the end of this part, and you have to use all the mathematical equations, you have to use all the mathematical rules, you have to look at a flower and see how it's got the little petals. You have to look at, you know, a square, and you have to see how it's like two, you know, 2 on all sides, 4, you know, and then you have to use other things to go with that, and you have to use math, and you have to use, you know, like predictability. You have to know, like, if a hand's like this, is it between something? You know, you have to know, like, if it's like this, a hand like this, is it between something? Is it sideways? Is it measuring? I mean, is it a fan? You know, I mean, you have to use all of those trades that you have to your ability until it all, like, shrinks up in a little believable area. You know, like, you have to be able to take every corner of your life. Like, you have a whole deck of cards, right? You got to be able to take those little tiny corners, you know, they just really trip you out. And you're like, God damn it. You know, it's like, man, you know, I really want a hot dog today. You know, because, I mean, man, that chili would be so fucking good, you know. That's what I mean, like, something that is that good of a memory. You're like, man, you know, I really want to, you know, that is the part, you know, that's the part where you can see it, you know, and, you know, you're like, man, you know, I really want to watch Family Guy, man, I mean, that's a really good show, you know, or, you know, like, man, you know, I really want to play violin, you know, or, man, you know, I really want to, man, you know, and it has to say it, you know, man, you know, I really want to, man, you know, I really want to, man, you know, it has to keep hearing, man, you know, I really want to, until it feels good, till it says enough of them to where it just kind of rolls off, you know, Because I mean, if you just say it one time, something, it can be boring. You have to get rid of the boring elements, and you have to be able to take every corner of every idea, if it was like a piece of paper, and you have to take that little piece and just make a little slit in it. It's kind of hard to explain, but like another part of this is, like to describe that I've been in this room and what all was in it. I'd have to, basically use mathematical things when I view. This is easy. This is like programming. It's like saying, there's, a white door here and a white door here, and I can say that they're both here, but I have to explain it, and I have to find things that triggers it in order to make me be able to know what it is without seeing it. Like the processor part of view. This is like, I could say 20 decibels. I don't know what that means, but I know that I could go to a car and I could be interested and it could be fun, when I'm looking at, like the radio part and it says, 20 decibels, and I can adjust it, and then I can find something like of a memory that is what someone else is doing with me, about adjusting it and looking at decibels, and for some reason that's what made it fun for me to still do that, is what it would have to be. It'd be like, this is fun, and I can remember it if I have this to play with, is fun, and if it is boring, then I cannot remember it, and then, so this is 20 decibels has to do with it. There's two things here, you can tell that's two things. There's, rectangle, 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 but the thing is that rectangle, rectangle, rectangle isn't going to explain it good enough because it's easy, it's too big, it's too bulky. And when you go to college, the format that we're using to teach is shit. And that's what the music is supposed to do, is tell you that. And you have to be able to say things that are not gray, concrete. It's got to say anything that has to have crazy math in it. You can't have normal math. You can't have fun shit math, but we've known that for forever, for centuries. I don't even know why it would be important. And and you can't just say, because look how long it would take to explain that I'm in a room that is gray, and I can just be turning like this and I can say corkscrew, but it's still not really good enough. You say drill, you could say screwdriver, you could say orange juice because the skin color is orange, but then you could say don't say that. You could say something that has everything to do with it, that has nothing to do with what it is. It's easy to know that this is skin colored and it's more orange. It's a little bit better than saying, well, the skin hue, is skin colored, and then it gets boring. It's like when you're in school, it has to be able to, when you're, and until the when you're, says what it says, so you can get it, it gets rolling. And you have to know what every item is in the room. I said 20 decibels, and anything that comes in my mind has to come, it has to do it, and there could be sex, there could be music, there could be another song, there could be silence, there could be something I don't know yet. No, there's things that reminds me of, and to me it reminds me of me explaining what it is, because that would help me remember it. Things like that would have to be in the music. And it would have to have, like where you're stuttering, hey, like when you get, like all of that shit with they take those little tiny little short clips and put them all together, vines and stuff. You'd have to do it kind of like Vines, except you have to follow the Vines part and the songs part and the talking like laws part, where you're like, hey, how are you? And you have to shake someone's hand and good job, and that's great, good for you, good point, attitude, yes, things like that. And it has to put it all in, like every little piece of what is said, and then it has to just basically give you that, like the orange of it all, and there's nothing else to really explain about it now, but and it has to be crazy. It's like, and then it will add up, I promise, but it has to have the fun element. It's like when you're in school and you're like, I mean, you'll always be told, 10 plus 1 is 11, but 10 plus 1 is 11, and, there has to be a way to glue that idea together so you can remember it, and it can't just be 10 plus 1 is 11. It has to have layers to it. It has to have, like 10 plus 1 is 11 is also, 10, and it's also a finger going like this, and then the plus, and then, 1, and then you can draw a line with your finger and visualize it. Is 11, you could type is, you could put it on the side. Is 11 is equals 11, 1, and 10 plus 1 is 11, 10 plus 1 is 11. And even then, like, you're doing something with your finger that has to do with something, you know, 1, cross, like line is 11, and you could even do 2 steps. That's 11, or you could say, like, you could look at your hands, you say this is 5, and then you could go like 1, 2, 3, and that's 15, and then you can look at something else, like, like this, and then all of a sudden, like after doing this, that's 1, 1, 1, and then you could say that's 3, and then you could say that 3 and 15, you could go 3 and 15 is 18. You could say that something subtracted from 18 would be 11, and that reminds you of it, and then you could go like this, and say, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And then until it does it, and that's 4, 18, 15, 14. And then you have to find like a couple more. I said couple more. That would be 2. And then it would kind of ride down back to the 11. You could say, well, technically I could just say all that stuff in the hand, and then, it's like 5, 5, 5, and then, looking like this, and looking like this until it kind of registers it right there. Like it looks like it's longer than, like you can tell, like you can say, it's like one movement, and it says it. That's how the trippy visuals have to be. And then you're like, yeah, I remember, a couple more, and then the 4, and then it just goes from 11 to 18, and then subtracts by 4, and then 3, 2, 18, 17, 16, and it has to, and it's something, like flip a hat, and then remember, it's like what, like, oh, okay, is how, and then you remember 11, and that's how it would translate. It'd have to be like that kind of math, and it'd have to be like, like really easy to say that, like, it's supposed to be able to like kind of dance about it. It's supposed to, like, you know what I mean? It's got to have anything that is crazy in it, that can remind you of something, and it has to glue the ideas together. It has to move them together. And you can, technically be like music already is, and you can take, like, something and just kind of use it. But you have to use all the elements. It's like when someone's doing the Macarena, and then they're Dale ya tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, like, what that's saying, and it's like, cuerpo dale, macaroni, it sounds like macaroni, and you have to use that part only. You have to take those fabrics, and you have to be able to trip them out with it, and with it, and with it, like, it has to do stuff that is crazy when you sit there with people, and it has to do that's the only thing that you can do is the crazy stuff. When you're just sitting there and you're like, man, I've smoked too much marijuana, man. I'm just gonna sit here and watch this little TV show. You have to take what is said really seriously. And anything that's that subtle, you are very sensitive as a person, and if you remember something, it's time for us to just realize that we have memory, and we got our memory from physical places, and that people remember things and they can give them to other people, such as parents, you know. I mean, I know it's psychotic, but it is what is used. That is what it is. You have to use it. And it's like us being computers.